this is Yvonne here from Believe Youghal. We are a spiritual shop in the centre of the town, and tonight is part of Culture Night. We will be presenting Tales by Candlelight, where the characters of Youghal, the ghostly characters, and importantly Florence Newton, the Witch of Youghal, will once more walk the streets again, and we will let them tell their stories and what it was like to live back then. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody! Are we all ready for a ghost tour? Who's afraid of ghosts? Who has seen a ghost? What is it? Shall we go up to welcome you here tonight on behalf of tonight to what's going to be absolutely amazing event. Keep your wits about it. We don't know who's going to come out of the shadows. One thing we've asked you to do is stay close together, and we have going to stop it to make sure that we're staying off the road, because we would like to have visitors from the other side. That would be scary. There is, just be aware that there is photography being taken as we move along. If you don't wish to have your photograph taken, just let us know. Maybe you're here with somebody else you shouldn't be. I don't know. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk the path of Youghal, and we're going to meet those characters that once graced these hallowed grounds. And just keep an eye out, because you don't know where they're going to come from. But first of all, in order for you to be able to see these people, in Irish tradition, we always went anti-clockwise 3 times to see those from the other world. So I invite you now to turn around 3 times, anti-clockwise, which way is from the opposite to the cross. Right, let's go, follow me, and let's see what's going to happen.
I bid you good morrow, all you kind souls who gather here. My name is Florence Newton, sometimes known as Goody Newton, Florence Newton. However, most of you will know me as the Witch of Youghal. I never thought I would become so famous. I suppose stranger things have happened. I speak to you from beyond the grave. Let me tell you my story. It is an interesting one. I was a humble healer, accused of wielding the dark arts. My intent was but to soothe and mend, using the herbs and remedies gifted to us by nature itself. This was my profession in the town of Old Youghal, until one fateful night just before Christmas. I was cold and hungry and could not stand the pains of hunger anymore. I knocked at the home of John Pine. The housemaid, Mary Langdon, answered the door, and I asked for food. Sure, I knew Mary from the market, as she had often come to me for remedies and told me a secret or two. The flickering warmth emanating from within the house taunted me, as my pleas for sustenance were met with a heartless dismissal. As I turned from the door, I felt the weight of desperation and isolation press heavily upon my chest. A few days later, I met Mary going to the stream with a pail of clothes. This was to be my undoing. Could I just for once keep my mouth shut? Of course not. I threw the pail from Mary's head and violently kissed her, exclaiming, "Mary, I pray thee, that let thee and I be friends, for I bear thee no ill will." They say it was after the incident of the violent kiss that Mary began to experience violent fits and trances. Suspicion had clouded the eyes of my fellow townspeople, and everyone looked to me. I found myself in a packed courtroom, accused of all sorts. According to the powers that be, I was a conjurer, waking the souls of the dead and the devil himself. They shouted witch. Mary said that during her fits she saw me sticking pins in her arms. She also said that she saw me standing beside her bed with a little old man in silk clothes. She said she repeatedly vomited needles, pins, horse nails, stubs, wool and straw, and she was pelted with mysterious showers of stones that followed her from room to room in her house and outdoors from place to place. Most of the stones vanished when they hit the ground. But they could not see what I could see, that this woman was sick of mind. Others came forward to give evidence against me. I was but a poor old woman trying to survive in an unjust world. I found myself in a dimly lit cell, my heart heavy with the weight of an unjust accusation. The case against me grew steadily as I failed successive traditional tests for witchcraft. My poor old body enduring searing pain for a tormentor's inflicted agony without mercy. The cold touch of iron restraints bit into my wrists, a physical reminder of my helplessness. The jailer, David Jones, was kind. He taught me to say the Lord's Prayer. This simple act of kindness felt like a lifeline, a reminder that humanity still existed even in the bleakest of circumstances. I kissed him on the hand to say thank you, but he died soon after, so the accusation changed from practicing witchcraft to murder. The records say Florence Newton of Youghal, spinster, died about 65 or thereabout at the last assizes held for the county of Cork, the 11th of September 1661. All I remember is that the air seemed charged around me with an otherworldly energy. As my eyes closed for the last time, I felt a sense of weightlessness as my spirit left its earthly vessel and I was free.
And she was one of the first suffragettes of Ireland, and she has an amazing story to tell. So let's make our way. Follow Mark behind me. Yes. In the midst of Youghal lived Annie Fisher. Annie Fisher pursued justice and equality. Let us carry with us the spirit of Annie Fisher and the countless others who dared to challenge the status quo. And now if you begin to look around the street, let's see if you can see Annie Fisher, and we will hear her story. If you can see her, please call out.
Anna Haslam, Annie Fisher. Have you heard of me? My Miss Anna Fisher? No? Well then, let me tell you a bit about my life story, if I may. Some say I was a visionary woman,
a feminist and political activist. I believe it was my early years in Youghal that ignited in me a fervent need to campaign for human rights and political reform, especially for women. I was born in Youghal in 1829. One of 17 children, I was raised by one of the most prominent Quaker families in town, in what is now Concho's building. As was the Quaker way, men and women were viewed as equals, so I was well educated. During my upbringing, my parents were heavily involved in famine relief in Youghal, and also in the campaign to abolish slavery. I myself gladly helped in the soup kitchens in Youghal during the famine, one in Barry's Lane and the other in Ash Street. I had the idea of teaching lace making as a means for women to earn an income to prevent starvation during these trying times. Although not documented as such, I fought for the segregation of men and women in Youghal Clockgate Tower during their terrible incarceration. I married my husband, Thomas Haslan, in 1854, wherein I took up the mantle to better the protection and status of women in society and for better opportunities for education for women. I campaigned to change the laws on the rights for women to own and control their own properties and finances, even following marriage. This I won in 1882. Many of my actions were the catalyst for women's suffragette movement and the birth of modern feminism. In 1876, I founded the Women's Suffragette Association, writing letter after letter to the newspapers. Like today, I understood the power of the media to spread my message. I fought for and won the right for women to vote in Ireland. In 1918, at the age of 89, I cast my first vote in a parliamentary election. This was a proud moment indeed. I died in 1922. It is said that my ghostly apparition has been seen from time to time in the dead of night as I revisit my old childhood home and wander the lanes of Youghal. Am I here to witness the reform I worked so hard to achieve and the lives that were undoubtedly saved? Or perhaps I am unsettled and find no peace by the injustices still prevalent in the world today. You will never know for sure, but do keep your eyes peeled for me.
And now we will lay a rose in their remembrance of Annie Fisher. She was a very brave woman.
Thanks very much, Annie Fisher, on behalf of all women.
So the next person that we're going to meet is unfortunately somebody we will all meet, and that is the funeral director. But first of all, before we go there, we have somebody very special who has travelled all the way from America. It's her 80th birthday, and let's sing happy birthday because you have to celebrate life. And her name is Angela, and I'm not singing it.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Angela. Happy birthday to you. Hip hip hooray! Hip hip hooray! Hip hip hooray!
Now let's all meet our favourite person. Where he is going to come from.
Francis, the funeral director. On a cold, damp and dark winter's night in Youghal, head down and collar up against the rain, a solitary man was rushing to get home from work to the warmth and shelter. He was alone, for it was late. His thoughts were on something warm to eat, when suddenly he was alerted to a sound. As he took his usual path home up Chapel Lane, he halted in his tracks, for in the distance he heard the unmistakable sound of horses' hooves. This can't be, he thought, looking around. Perhaps it was coming from someone's television. But there were no lights on anywhere, and there were no other distinguishable sounds of life. It drew nearer, and faster, and louder, and undeniably it was the sound of horses' hooves clip-clopping on cobblestones. Cobblestones that no longer existed on this lane. Caught halfway, thoughts flooded through his mind. Will I run, up or down? Which way was it approaching? But fight or flight did not prevail, because with a whoosh of hot, steamy air and the snorting and whinny of undeniable smell of hot horse's skin in his nostrils, the sensation passed him by in a flurry. And behind the horse's hooves, the sound of something heavy being drawn by the horse. wheels rumbling on the cobblestones. An image flashed through his mind and a memory sprang to the fore. His grandmother used to tell a tale of times long gone of a funeral director that used this very route to draw the coffins for burial in the local graveyard. A proud man, so devoted to his profession and the solemnities surrounding the burial procedure, that, even in his death, he was heard continuing his route with his trusted horses, bringing the dead on their last journey to their final resting place. So, would you be brave enough to walk alone up Chapel Lane late at night? Let's hope you don't have to find out anytime soon. Maybe he could be there, waiting for you to take you to your final resting place.
Did any of you feel a tip in your back? He had a lot of experiences while he was in the church. And today he is a ghost himself. But we do know his story because he's part of our family story. And so, let's listen to what he has to say.
William in the church. Hello, my name is William. Many years ago, I was sacristan of this church. I loved it here, and still now watch the living pass through its doors. It's not as busy as it used to be. It's funny that I'm now going to tell you a spooky story when I became a ghost myself. Each night at twilight, I would lock up the church, ensuring that it was secure for the night, yet my routine was far from ordinary, for I often encountered the extraordinary. As I walked through the dimly lit aisles, I would catch a glimpse of a spectral figure in one of the pews. The figure settled in a soft ethereal glow, knelt in deep devoted prayer. Though unsettling, there was an air of peace about the apparition that intrigued rather than frightened me. Night after night, the apparition returned, its presence seemingly tied to the sanctity of the church. One evening, driven by curiosity, I mustered the courage to approach the apparition. I asked, "Who are you, and why do you come here to pray?" The figure slowly turned its head towards me, its gaze holding a mixture of sadness and longing. In a voice that seemed to enter my mind, I heard, "I am a spirit seeking solace and redemption through my prayers." "How may I help you?" I asked. "Every night when you close the door where the coffins lay in the church, I know you feel the doors shaking. Please leave the door slightly ajar, allowing the souls to feel welcome, and acknowledge in doing this you will also have set me free." The apparition's presence began to fade, its form gradually dissolving into the air. From that night on, I never saw him again, and the door was always left ajar where the coffins rested. Now I return to my silent vigil, watching you about your daily lives. In the shadows, you may feel my energy, a whisper of existence that lingers between the worlds.
Thank you for those sound effects. And next we are going back to the Quakers again, because the Quakers were so important to the town of Youghal. They fed so many people at the time of the famine, and it is worthwhile just remembering these people because they don't always get the remembrance that they deserve. So we're going to go now and visit the soup kitchens of Youghal. We acknowledge those beautiful people, those beautiful souls, the Quakers. In Youghal, the population was about 11,000. By the time the famine was finished, we were down to 4,000. And probably would have had less people had it not been for these amazing Quakers. So we want to pay respect to them, we want to pay homage to them, and most of all we want to thank them. And now we listen to their story.
The Quaker Soup Kitchens of Youghal. The small town of Youghal has always been a tight-knit community, with everyone looking out for one another. But when the famine hit, things changed. The town's economy was devastated, and many people found themselves out of work and struggling to put food on the table. That's when the Quakers stepped in. They set up soup kitchens in Youghal, offering free hot meals to anyone in need. The townspeople were overwhelmed by the generosity and kindness of the Quakers. Every day, the Quaker volunteers would serve up hearty meals to the hungry folk of Youghal. They didn't just serve up food though. They also offered a listening ear and words of encouragement to those who were struggling. The Quakers set up soup kitchens in most towns. With £1 sterling, you could make enough soup to feed 400 people. The recipe was 1 pound of peas, 1 pound of pearl barley per gallon of water. Salt and pepper might be added. If there was bread, it too was added to the soup. There were 3 large vats in the soup kitchen, one to dispense soup, one being cleaned, and one being prepared. The soup kitchen was in constant use. The people of Youghal were so grateful for the Quakers' help. They knew that without their kindness and generosity, many of them would have gone hungry. The soup kitchens were a lifeline for the community, and they helped to bring the people of Youghal closer together. Even after the famine and the town's economy started to recover, the Quakers' soup kitchens remained open. They continued to offer a hot meal and a kind word to anyone in need. To the people of Youghal, the Quakers had become like family. The Quaker soup kitchens of Youghal, County Cork, may have closed, but the memory of the kindness they offered will never be forgotten. The people of Youghal are grateful for all the Quakers did for them, and the bond between them will last forever. Sometimes, on a misty night in Youghal, you can see the ghostly apparitions of Quakers who still roam the streets in search of those in need of help and sustenance. Banshee.
I think the Quakers of Youghal deserve a big round of applause. And again we will lay roses where the Quakers now reside. If you look behind the Quakers there, that is actually the Quakers' grave. So beyond lies the graves where the Quakers are buried. In the dead of the night, eerie lights flicker and dance among the tombstones. Only those with a good heart will see them. So let's move on and glance back and see how good your heart really is.
Folks, can we move to the side there for a minute, please?
Well, maybe I'm mistaken. We'll carry on and let's see what happens. Unless, of course, you're a McGrath. You have a know your name. Please, got any of these people here tonight? She's often walking along. And when she comes, if she does come, I want you to be very quiet. You do not want to look at her in the eyes. For you will be next.
Banshee. The Banshee of Youghal is Misha Banshee na Hokara. I am the Banshee of Youghal. Banshee means woman of the fairies. It is said that I came from the realm of the Fae, the good folk of Erin. But there are those who believe that I was once a young woman, brutally murdered, who remains trapped between the veil of life and death, forever to foretell the imminent death of those who can hear my cries. Tá brón arm, agus tá mé a cuine leis na daoine a forbás. The sadness is upon me, and I cry for the people who will die. Those who hear my cries in keening will never forget the sound. Those who have seen me will never forget the sight. My long hair flowing in the wind, my tattered dress, or the bright red of my eyes. Are you an O'Neill, a Hegarty, or a MacDonald, perhaps? It is said that those with an O or a Mac in their surnames can hear the Banshee cries. Listen, Biagi Agishtak, for the melancholy sound of the Banshee. I come to warn you, prepare you for what is to come. I come to escort the lonely souls on their journey to the other side.
Sliding steps, he walks the path leading to the church's side door. His presence is felt by those who dare to wander near. On certain nights, the faint whisper of chanting prayers fills the air. Skeptics dismiss it as mere imagination, but the believers swear they have seen the monk's spectral form, clad in tattered robes, gliding through the mist. Some believe he guards a secret that lies buried within the church's ancient walls. No matter the reason, the monk's apparition remains an enigmatic presence, captivating the hearts and minds of the townsfolk who continue to witness his ethereal journey through time. Even today, when dust descends upon the town, a sense of mystery hangs in the air, and the legend of the monk's spectral visitations goes on.
So has anybody in Youghal ever heard of a guy called John Dramada? No? Well, he was a very famous criminal, but he got turned into a saint. And we're going to hear his story. It's actually quite a funny one. So follow me as we continue down to the new plane.
Who were those who lurked in the shadows? In 1614, one such man that preferred the shadows was John Dramada. Described as a notorious offender and common criminal, John was captured in Youghal, tried for his crimes, convicted and executed. His head was placed on a spike at the Trinity Gate as a warning. In a very strange twist of fate, John found God in a very unusual way after his death.
Lads, you're all looking at the wrong thing.
That's
That's another monk. Follow me. Right, can we have your attention as we meet John Dramada? A silversmith in Youghal was renowned throughout the region for his craftsmanship. A silversmith in Youghal was renowned throughout the region for his craftsmanship and ability to breathe new life into old silverware. However, one day he received an unusual request that would test his skills and creativity like never before.
John Dramada. As we walk these silenced streets, beware of those who lurk in the shadows. In 1614, one such man that preferred the shadows was John Dramada. Described as a notorious offender and common criminal, John was captured in Youghal, tried for his crimes, convicted and executed. His head was placed on a spike at the Trinity Gate as a warning. In a very strange twist of fate, John found God in a very unusual way after his death. This is where St. Declan enters our tale. St. Declan of neighbouring Ardmore had died around 450 AD. One of the most important relics of St. Declan was his skull. By the 17th century, this skull was bearing the ravages of time. In 1642, the skull was sent to a silversmith in Youghal for repair. This did not work out too well, as the skull disintegrated at the first blow of the silversmith's hammer. As you can guess, this left the smith with a serious problem to solve. So instead of owning up to what had happened, he embarked upon a plan to cover it all up. The smith acquired the skull of one John Dromada, which had all remembered John from the first part of our tale, and worked on it, making it look as if he had attached a silver plate along with other silverwork to preserve the relic. At first the deception appeared to work, but the game was up and the fraud uncovered at the next St. Declan's Patron Day in Ardmore. On this day the skull is placed on display for the public. The silversmith may have succeeded in deceiving the monks, but he had no such luck when it came to the pilgrims that came to worship the relic. They more than anyone knew every contour of the genuine article. Dromada's was not a good match.
Thank you. And there's a knight. There's a knight. Come on, gather close, we won't fight. So as we continue our journey through the shadow of history, remember that even in death, the Knight Templar stands vigilant, guarding their ancient mysteries and forever haunting the corridors of time. And now we will listen to his story.
A Knight's Tale. Among the gentle rustling of leaves and the vague whispers.
I won't take.
A Knight's Tale. Among the gentle rustling of leaves and the faint whispers of the wind, I stand as a silent observer in the realms between words. The living bustle through their days, their footsteps echoing with purpose, and as they navigate the streets I once walked. Time flows differently now, a river of memories merging with the present. My name is Liam, by the way. I grew up in this town, listening to tales of bravery and chivalry, the stories of the knights and their noble quests capturing my imagination, sparking a desire to become one myself. As I gazed out to the horizon, I dreamt of adventures far beyond the shores of Youghal. With unwavering determination, I left to join the fabled Knight Templar. To protect pilgrims from danger, I trained rigorously, honing my skills in combat, horsemanship, and the code of the valiant. I embarked on my journey to the Holy Land. I carried the spirit of Ireland with me, always remembering the stories of my childhood. I fought bravely alongside my fellow Templars. I faced both physical battles and inner struggles, finding strength in my dedication to the cause. With each triumph and loss, I grew more resolute in my mission to protect the Holy Land and its people. Years passed and the scars of war were etched on my face. My unwavering commitment and camaraderie with my fellow knights earned me respect amongst the ranks. But as time wore on, the weight of battle and the separation from my homeland began to take its toll. One fateful day, as the Crusades raged on, I found myself facing an overwhelming enemy force. Despite my bravery, I was struck down in the midst of battle, my dreams of returning to Ireland unfulfilled. In that moment, I realized war doesn't bring lasting peace, only lasting death, and that the first casualty of war is innocence. As my life slipped away, I held on to the memories of home, imagining the town I had left behind. And so I stand at the crossroads of memory and reality, a phantom of the past with no place in the present. I yearn to touch tangible once more, to feel the warmth of sunlight on my face, or the embrace of a loved one. But those desires are but echoes of a life left behind, a chapter written in the annals of time. The living walk on, unaware of my spectral presence, and that is how it should be. For those who have the gift of second sight, do acknowledge me. My purpose now is not to intervene, but to bear witness to the tapestry of existence unfurling before me. I am a guardian of memories, a sentinel of moments frozen in time. In the quiet hours of the night, when the world is still and the boundaries between worlds grow thin, I linger in the spaces where our worlds intersect. I listen to the heartbeat of the town, the laughter and the tears, and I find solace in the continuation of life's eternal dance.
Thank you. So as you can see, we have a ghostly maid. Have to tidy up. She was once a diligent and devoted servant in the Red House behind us. Her story is
Can't hear you, Yvonne.
free in the afterlife. She continues to pick up after me. And then be one of them. Listen to her story now.
Hannah, the maid at the Red House. I think perhaps you may have heard of me because I would appear to have gained some notoriety. Yes, I am the maid at the Red House, and many have borne witness to me, some with great terror. But that is not my intention. Some may say I am a ghost, a phantom, an apparition, but for me I am merely continuing to do the job I held such pride in life, and have chosen to remain within these dear walls which hold such fond memories for me. You see, it all started many, many years ago. My mother saw an advertisement in the newspaper stating, "Hard-working girl wanted for general duties within a town residence in Youghal." As I was the eldest girl with many more children on the way up, mother saw fit to apply on my behalf. Although not well educated as such, mother always said I was sharp as a whip, quick on the uptake, and though slight of frame, was hard-working as any horse. Not handsome of features, I was deemed presentable, always neat and tidy as a pin. Mother wrote as much in her letter and was successful in her application. Although saddened to leave home, such was the way, and I left my childhood and my home at the tender age of 14. I travelled long and far, and my skirts and outer coat were dusty from the long carriage ride, which I abhorred. Cleanliness is next to godliness, mother used to always say, and I had that ethic instilled in me in abundance. My duties changed as I grew older, from scullery maid to an upstairs maid, and eventually the housekeeper of this great house. The master and mistress were always very kind to me, for they had no children of their own. They relied upon and trusted me to keep all in order, something that I took great pride and satisfaction from. I watched them grow into their golden years, and I, not long after, started to feel the passage of time myself. I passed peacefully one evening, sitting in my rocking chair, mending the hems of my mistress's skirts by candlelight. I'll stay here where I am needed, doing what I do best, keeping all in order. Although the master and mistress have long since gone to their eternal resting place, and I have seen many others come and go, the house and the occupants are still in need of my organisation. Some have seen me as I sit in my chair, rocking back and forth as I continue to do my work. I pick up the clothes that have been discarded thoughtlessly before slumber, tut-tutting as I fold them neatly and put them away. And of course, lay fresh clothes out for them in the morning, all ready to start a new day. After all, there is a place for everything, and everything in its place. And my place is here, and here I will stay. You are welcome to stay as long as you keep all in order. And if you do not, well then, we shall see.
Well, there's a nice threat by a ghost. So our next stop brings us to the heart of the town, the market square.
Okay.
Now many of you might think that the judge looks like the funeral director, but it just happens they're twins. In the days of old, before newspapers, radio or television, towns relied on a trusted figure known as a town crier. This individual's duty was to announce important news, proclamations and events to the townspeople, ensuring that everyone was informed. I give you our town crier.
Oyez! 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 Good evening to you, one and all.
Good evening! Good evening!
I just want to warn you. Is there any witches here before I start?
No witches here!
Because if there is, I have the right person for you. So be careful, I'm going to arrest some of you. Right? But before we do that, we'll give you a little story about where we're standing tonight. We're standing actually on the old market square of Youghal. This is the original market square. The market cross would be out approximately in the middle of the road. Being the market square, there would be markets here. Usually the market in Youghal was Saturdays and Thursdays. But every quarter day there'd be a special market. And funnily enough, every last week in September there would be a special market. Right? The special market in September would be called either the hiring fair or the mock fair, whichever you wanted to call it. And the hiring fair was where, as I say, it was held here in the last week in September. And it was where all the labourers and servants would come to be hired. If you were a farm labourer, you used to wear a book of straw in your hair. If you were a shepherd, you had a piece of wood in your hand. If you were a groom, you would have a riding crop. Now, funnily enough, maybe you don't know it, but funnily enough, hiring fairs carried on until the middle of the 20th century. They might have died out, but they were still available in them then. And I'm not being funny. In 1957, I stood in a market fair on a hiring day with a riding crop stuck in my boot as a groom. Nobody hired me. So I joined the Navy instead. But that is fact, like that. So as I say, that's what it was. The other thing was, we'll go back to the town crier. I am the town crier. And if I find some of you isn't listening to me and taking notice of me, you're ending up in there. Right? I have the right to put you into jail. The only jail we have is there. So any of you that isn't listening, be careful. Right? October to October. That's an interesting fact if you're interested in that sort of thing. Now then, I'm going to go around and have a look to see who I can arrest. There you are, Judge. Pass your verdict.
Who says guilty? Aye. 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 Who says not guilty?
Aye.
Guilty it is. Condemned to death.
Oh, no!
It's a bit severe. What did she do? I said we
We don't like them witches, do we?
Yes.
Should we put her in?
Yeah!
I'm not quite sure whether that's a yes. No. Should we put her in?
Yeah!
What's on all them people?
She's just really insensitive. Oh, burner! Oh, yeah, she's a burner.
No. Put her inside, son. In your room.
Off with her head.
Terrible man. I'm arrested her, but the head has to go. Smile.
You seem happy, is that?
Can you see
Anybody else there that I arrest?
Yeah, let's go ahead. Sorry, boy.
Oh, there they are. Here's the witch. The young witch.
She's a witchling.
Let's have a look around. How are you? Sorry? Alright. Okay. Anyway, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Remember, the veil between the living and the dead is sometimes thinner than we dare to imagine. Keep your senses sharp, for you may come face to face with the ghostly figure of Joe Buttimer, who is often seen walking up and down these streets. He was believed to have died on the Nelly Fleming, and we're going to listen to that story now.
The Sinking of the Nelly Fleming and the Wandering Sailor of Youghal. It was February 1936, and the Nelly Fleming was sailing along the sea as she had done before, returning to Youghal after parting Lindley in Wales. Her sister ship, the Kathleen May, was also en route to Youghal, both ships full of cargo such as salt and coal. The two ships were owned by the local general merchant named Martin Fleming, and he named them after his daughters. But sadly this night, in 1936, would be the Nelly Fleming's last journey. The ship was caught in a dreadful storm, the worst storm in Ireland's history at the time. The Kathleen May managed to steer itself to refuge, using its more powerful engine, but sadly, the Nelly Fleming did not have the same support, and with no way to steer the ship to safety, all life on board was lost to the sea. In Ardmore, however, a group of people were out on a boat that night and saw the Nelly Fleming coming towards them. Two men climbed the rocks and called out that the Nelly Fleming was coming into the bay, but as soon as they looked around again, she had vanished before their very eyes. They were astonished, but had no time to lose as they realised this was bad news, and the men raced into Youghal upon horseback. When they arrived into the town, they were met with a group of people who were awaiting the return of the Nelly Fleming and their loved ones. When they heard what had occurred in Ardmore Bay, they knew in their hearts what had transpired. People came from their homes to kneel and pray at the quay wall, rosary beads in hand, and candles lit inside jam jars, as if to guide the sailors back home. They did not know at this time that all lives were already claimed by the unforgiving sea. Then somebody spotted a lone figure by the crowd, wearing a rough woolen cap on his head, his little duffel bag slung across one shoulder, and he walked with a limp. There was no mistaking this man. It was Joe Buttimer. He did not join the crowd, but instead went behind the lobster pots and behind the quay, over towards Harvey's dock. His wife from the crowd spotted him and ran to where he was, screaming his name, begging for him to stop and tell them what had happened. But when she reached him, he vanished. The boat and its crew were never recovered from the sea. However, Joe Buttimer has often been seen on a dark night wandering the lanes and alleyways, duffel bag slung over his shoulder as he makes his way home.
Let's follow Joe and let's see where he's going. Come on. So if you look across the quayside, you can see poor Moll Goggin. And Moll represents all those people who have waited for their loved ones to return from the sea. And now we will listen to her story.
Moll Goggin. The woman who stands on the quayside is called Moll Goggin. Her heart is heavy with grief. She represents all those who have lost loved ones to the sea. This is Moll's story. Moll, a woman of unwavering determination, stood on the quayside, her gaze fixed upon the endless expanse of the sea. She knew in her heart that her husband had been lost to the treacherous waves, yet she clung to the hope that defied reason. The salty wind tousled her hair as she waited, yearning for the sight of his ship. Each day Moll grappled with a whirlwind of emotions. Desperation gnawed at her soul, while grief clung to her like a heavy shroud. She felt the pain of his absence deep within, a void that seemed impossible to fill. Her heart ached with longing, and tears often flowed freely down her cheeks, mingling with the sea spray. Years stretched on, but Moll's resolve remained unyielding. The townspeople watched with a mix of pity and admiration as she stood by the water's edge. She became a fixture of the quayside, her presence a testament to the enduring power of love and the human spirit. Seasons changed, and Moll's face weathered with time, yet her gaze remained fixed, searching for the ship that would never return. Her friends and family tried to coax her away, urging her to accept the reality that her husband was gone. But she held on, her heart still tethered to the memories of their life together. As the years turned into decades, Youghal itself transformed, and Moll became a living legend. Children would hush their whispers as they passed her, while adults marvelled at her persistence. She found comfort in her devotion, while others couldn't fathom the depths of her pain. Eventually, age caught up with Moll, and her steps became slower, more hesitant. The quayside, once a place of hope, had transformed into a shrine of memories and unfulfilled dreams. Friends who had stood by her side had passed away, leaving her more isolated than ever. One calm evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Moll felt a strange sense of peace wash over her. She closed her eyes, imagining her husband's warm embrace, and for a fleeting moment it was as though he was there with her. A gentle smile graced her lips as she whispered her final goodbye, the weight of years slowly lifting from her shoulders. As the town woke up the next morning, they found Moll sitting peacefully on the quayside, her wrinkled face turned towards the sun. The waves lapped at the shore, a quiet lullaby for a woman who had stood vigil for so long. She had found her peace, reuniting with her husband in the quiet depths of eternity, leaving behind a legacy of enduring love and the strength to wait against all odds. They do say if you catch a glimpse of her on the quayside, someone has lost their life to the sea, and she is there waiting for them to come home.
Poor Moll. But now, please put your valuables away, because there are pirates about. Let's see where they are.
sharing. Oh God, it's telling me it's going to be New York again.
Sorry?
This time next week, New York. You look very much like Frank.
Has anybody got Tony Keller's number? We need to tell him that the pirates are on his boat.
Pirates of Youghal. Pirates, the stuff of myth and legend, swashbuckling outlaws bringing murder and mayhem to the high seas. The 1700s was a golden age for piracy, the period following the English-Spanish War of which England was the victor. When we think of pirates, we may picture white sand beaches, Caribbean islands, and the infamous Jolly Roger flying from the masts. Not all pirates plied their trade on the Caribbean seas, and piracy was commonplace on the waters of Youghal's coastline. Being a pirate in Youghal could be a risky business. If caught, you could be hanged, tarred, and placed in a gibbet to rot. If you were lucky, if luck was not on your side, you might be staked down at low tide, at the mouth of the black water, and slowly drowned in the rising tide. Or maybe pressed to death in the yard of the town jail by having stones piled on your body until you suffocated. Despite all this, piracy was common in the sea and coast around Youghal for centuries. The fortunes made, allowing some pirates to rise in society. One such man was Walter Raleigh, who was knighted for sharing his spoils with the crown. The pirate trade received a boost with the arrival in Youghal of Raleigh in the 1580s. Raleigh owed his wealth and position to piracy, and although he tried to reinvent himself as a gentleman, he still maintained ties with many of the pirates that he knew. Piracy was encouraged during the English-Spanish War, and many pirate captains worked for the crown under letters of marque as privateers. These pirates were supposed to pay taxes to the crown on all goods seized. But if captured goods were landed in Youghal, payments to the crown could be avoided. This did mean having to pay off Raleigh's town council, but then receiving stolen goods was the type of business that appeared to all walks of life. Youghal Harbour was a safe anchorage in which the pirates could unload their loot and re-provision. Youghal and the many inlets along the coastline, as well as Capel Island, became notorious as locations where captured Spanish sailors were slaughtered and where treasure was unloaded and buried. Not all pirate captains carried letters of marque from the crown, and many continued to prey on vessels irrelevant of what flag they were flying. In the 1600s, it was reported that off the coast of Youghal set 11 pirate ships with 1,000 sailors under the command of the infamous Captain Jack Ward. That is a lot of pirates and far too many to execute. The solution proposed for Youghals piracy problems was to transport the Youghal pirates to Virginia, but first they had to catch them. This was no easy task, as the Youghal pirates were some of the most experienced sailors on the island. They had a reputation for their readiness to defy the perils of storm and battle. Ward, a former Royal Navy seaman, drew the wrath of King James, who sent his navy to capture him. Having defeated the King's Navy, Ward gave the survivors the following message. Go home, says Captain Ward, and tell your king from me. If he reigns king all on the land, Ward will reign king on the sea. Youghal had far too many pirate captains operating along its coastline to mention them all. In 1627, ships carrying provisions for an English invasion force of France were damaged by a storm off the south coast of Ireland and plundered by pirates under the command of John Nutt at Youghal. Again, the pirates had come into a direct conflict with the interests of the Crown, and Nutt's fleet was often seen in the waters beyond Capel Island. In 1631, an attempt was made to decommission Nutt's pirate fleet by granting him a pardon. At first Nutt refused, but finally accepted the king's pardon. In 1646, Mary Buster from Youghal was captured by Barbary pirates and later bought back for the sum of £75. On August 4th, 1696, a proclamation was made in Youghal offering a reward for the apprehension of Henry Avery, the pirate, and his crew. But these are tales for another time, and now our story on the Pirates of Youghal draws to a close.
And now we move along to the... So who knows the story of Anne Banishka? Do you know her? Do you know the Water Witch of Youghal? She comes and she helps to save the fishermen. And she is a good witch. And we're going to listen to her story before we remember all of those who are lost at sea. Anne Banishka.
How you doing?
Fado, fado.
Between the worlds is thin. The witches gather on the Mal beach and call out to her. They light a fire to serve as a beacon to welcome her home. Blaned is once again able to walk amongst the living. she collects the hopes, dreams and wishes of the people of Youghal. She takes them back to her watery grave, where she will work in them for the coming year. The people of Youghal look forward to welcoming her home every year. And so there is a festival around her.
And now I would like you all to come onto the beach as we remember all of those who are lost at sea. And we gather here by the shore of Blackwater, next to this woman, to honour and remember all those who have been lost at sea. We are carrying the weapons in our
Right, so Gurmi and Margaret agus Bula Boss.
Thank you very much.
And any final thoughts on the whole project tonight?
To be honest, we couldn't have asked for more. The amount of people that turned up, the interaction from people, the feedback we got was amazing. And then after from all point of view, just to see everyone and to see their reactions was brilliant.
It was great to be able to bring these stories that we grew up with, you know, to life. That we spent some time here together.
It was an absolutely incredible night. It was amazing. I absolutely loved it from start to finish. The crowds that were there, the interaction that we had with them, people were enthralled by the stories. It was such a really good feel-good factor as well, and I'm just so proud to be part of it. And thank you to everybody who came to support us. And there'll be a lot more like this. Just watch for the Spirit of Youghal. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Brother Sean.